This is Steve A here doing a video for my Home Depot review of the General International 16-inch variable speed scroll saw. I'm going to give a overview of the saw, some of the features, and I will do a demonstration. I'll cut up some wood at the end just so you can see how it works. Before I get to the saw though, I'm going to zoom in on the specs here. Try to get rid of that glare. 1.2 amps, doesn't draw much power. Strokes per minute ranges from 400 to 1600. On the table, you can cut up to 16. You can the cutting capacity, the depth is up to 16 inches, and at 90 degrees, you can cut wood up to 2 inches thick. And finally, the with its cast iron base, weighs 24 pounds. Okay, so here's the saw here. This is a scroll saw. It's a really neat tool, especially if you're into woodworking. I'll just kind of explain what it does really quick. It makes very fine cuts in wood. It has a very thin blade, so you can just cut in circles, S's, anything you want if you're working at the right speed. I am very glad to have this. I've made a number of pieces out of wood with fine, tight cuts. For instance, I made my daughter a puzzle about 2 years ago for Christmas. And I used my jigsaw, and it was a very painful experience, and it was very hard to do because the jigsaw blade is only secured on top. So if you make tight turns, the blade can bend. Here, this blade is secured on the top and on the bottom, so you get a nice tight 90 degree or 0 degree cut or whatever you set the table to. So overall, if you're into carpentry, a saw like this is a must-have. Okay, getting into some of the features of it, I already pointed out the blade. This device here holds your piece down. You do not want the piece bobbing up and down. It'll hold the wood nice and tight, so the blade can get a good cut. You can adjust the bracket here with a hex wrench. Is pretty easy to do, and then the up-down adjustment knob is right here, and I'll leave it alone. One thing I'll note is I've had two quality issues. One of them is kind of staring right at us, this scratch. I don't know where this came from. The other one was this was bent pretty bad when I pulled it out of the box. It's a pretty flexible metal though, and I was able to bend it back. All right, next is these two kind of alien looking tubes. The first is a air tube, and this is a very convenient feature because when you're cutting a piece, this blows air on it to get the sawdust off, which is helpful so you can see your line. If you've ever cut with a jigsaw, you'll notice right where you're cutting, the sawdust usually piles up there and obscures the line, so this is very convenient. Next, this is a LED light, so it gives you some bright light right on your workpiece. Which is nice. Okay, so the blade, to remove it, there's a little handy holder here got a little T-wrench. This is a hex wrench. To remove the blade, you want to remove the blade either to replace it, or if you start cutting in the middle of a wood piece, you can remove the top of the blade, slide it through, and then start your cut. But to remove it, you basically loosen up here. And you remove the throat plate here, which pops out pretty easily. And then underneath the bench, there's another screw there. You loosen that, and then you can usually push this down, and the blade will pop out nice and easy. Takes a minute to change the blade on it. And then there's also there's a blade tensioner here. You can loosen it, tighten it, and what it does is it tightens up the blade here. The instructions say you want about 1/8 of an inch wiggle room on it. Blade tensioning is important. You want it pretty tight, but depending on what type of wood you cut, whether it's a softwood or a hardwood, you can loosen it or tighten it more. So last thing I'll point up here, from the blade to the back here is 16 inches. I measured it. It seems to be just a pinch shorter, but you still have plenty of room here to work a larger wood piece. Okay. Table's pretty nice surface. It's not too smooth, not too rough. It obviously scratches pretty easy. Okay, so that finishes it for up here, and then I'll go down below and show a few features. Here's the table bevel. Right now I have it on 0 degrees. You can easily loosen this up and adjust the table up to 45 if you're doing an angle cut. There's your on and off switch, and here's your variable speed. You can go down to the lowest, which is 400, go up to the highest, which is 1600. I find a little over 1000 works best. You can see that burn on that piece of wood there. That was at the highest RPM, and I was cutting spruce here. So I generally avoid that. So last thing I'll point out, the dust collection port here for your shop vac. This is a 1 1/8 inch tube. Fits in nicely there. This will help suck up a lot of the sawdust from the cut. The outer diameter is 1 3/8 inch for the larger shop vacs. I find this a very convenient size. I will note though, this is a pretty thin blade. You're cutting pretty slow. Generally don't need a shop vac. It doesn't make a huge mess in my workshop. Okay, last things down here I'll point out is there are 4 mounts if you want to bolt this down to your bench. It does vibrate a lot because it's going up and down. The mounts have rubber bushings on them. Here's a little trough for spare blades. The saw did come with 1 spare blade. I keep mine though over here. There's this little handy compartment, and I keep my spare blade, and that's my hex wrench for adjusting that. I keep those in there. It's pretty nice. Okay, so that's pretty much it for all the features of this saw. What I'll do is I will turn it on now. I'll turn it all the way down. Just show you kind of how it works. The motor's over here, pretty much brings the blade up and down. I'll turn the speed up now. And you'll notice the lights start to vibrate. I find no matter how hard I hold this down, I still get vibration. So here's full speed. And I'll turn it down to about where I like it, right there. Ish. Okay, and I'm still getting some vibration there. You can watch my finger, but I'm feeling the air. And then we got the light here. Okay, turn it off. All right, now what I have here is a piece of wood I'm going to cut. Keep in mind, I'm doing this with one hand. I'm going to try to stay on the line. I want to demonstrate pretty much for you how tight of a turn it can make. Normally, I have 2 hands on this for safety. Another safety point, whenever changing the blade, don't forget to unplug it because you don't want to cut your finger off. But anyway, I'm going to make this cut right now with one hand. And so keep in mind, it's probably not going to go that well because I'm using one hand, but I just want to give you guys a demonstration, show you how it works. So, all right, turn it back on. I'm not going to turn my shop vac on, so it's not too loud. Okay. So I'm going to adjust my repair tube. You see it blowing the sawdust away. You can see the little blower is blowing all the sawdust away, so I can see the line perfectly. It's very helpful. Okay, I'm going to switch hands here. I'm going to go back again. Nice, tight turn. And watch how quick it stops. Just like that. So it has a nice brake on it. Okay, so Okay, terrible cut. I apologize in advance. You can see I didn't get any burns on this. I think I said this is spruce already. I tried to follow my line. If I had two hands, I would have followed it a lot better if I was going slower. But the big point I'd like to point out to you, or the big thing I'd like to point out to you, is how tight of turns this can make. And you can make really great wood pieces with it. You can make toys, signs, letters, all sorts of things. This is a very handy tool to have. And you can see it didn't make too much mess. I can easily shop vac this up. Anyway, last thing I'll mention is this tool is made in Vietnam. But anyway, this concludes my video. Sorry for the poor cutting, but I hope it helped inform your purchasing decision. Thanks for watching.